Constitution of Kenya 2010 presents a unique opportunity for building a new urban culture in Kenya with renewed hope of overcoming economic inequalities and social exclusions. The new law paved way for a new governance system which overhauls the way urban areas and cities are managed. Through its devolved government structure, power is shared between the national government and the 47 county governments.
Central government has been too distant and has been too far from the people, to the extent that even the elected persons that we send to advance the voices, the different voices of the communities, you feel remotely connected to them because they're advancing this cause at a level where you do not have the responsibility to feel them. You do not have the particular opportunity to engage directly with them.
In the same spirit, several legislative documents have been put in place through the Acts of Parliament in a bid to streamline the operations. 5 critical laws were passed to shape the management and policies in urban areas, and these include the County Governments Act 2012, the Transition to Devolved Government Act 2012, the Intergovernmental Relations Act 2012, Public Finance Management Act 2012, and the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011. The Urban Areas and Cities Act gives effect to Article 184 of the Constitution to provide for the classification, governance, and management of the urban areas and cities, the criteria of establishing urban areas, the principle of governance and participation of residents, and for connected purposes. The Act provides urban residents with unprecedented opportunity to embrace new urban culture that guarantees inclusive urbanization.
A strong point there in the Constitution and in the Act is the whole question of people's participation. So if people are going to engage, definitely they are going to say, no, this is not how we're going to live. We need the resources to be arranged, readjusted, so as to address the issues that are at hand. Because then what are you planning for? What are you developing for, and so on. And I think it's a very good opportunity. The only challenge that I have is how ready are people to engage. So how are we going to get these 4 million Nairobians, for example, engaging with Evans Kidero? Exactly how? The mechanism.
To ensure that the urban population is sufficiently engaged in decision-making processes, Civil Society Urban Development Program CSUDP published a popular version of the Urban Areas and Cities Act. The document is available in simple user-friendly format and in a language that eliminates legal jargon and technical terms so that citizens can understand their duties and responsibilities as well as those of their leaders within the context of cities and urban areas. For instance, a city should have a minimum of 500,000 residents, have an overall framework that will guide the development of the area, and should be capable of generating enough revenue to fulfill its responsibilities, and must have the ability to adequately deliver key services to its residents. While this is a far cry from the current cities of Nairobi, Kisumu, and Mombasa, there are increasing challenges that confront Kenya's urban areas and cities.
We don't have adequate infrastructure. We don't have adequate urban services. We don't have adequate social infrastructure to support this huge amount of people getting into urban areas. But even more fundamentally, we've also not grown the urban economy. So instead of looking at urban areas as opportunities for growth, opportunities for development, opportunities for experiencing exciting and different socio-cultural life, it starts generating what you might call externalities of urban areas. They become places of crime. They also become places of grime. They become filthy places with no ventilation, with no adequate services, with rundown infrastructure.
But it's very important that people are alive to the fact that to get real top priorities, we must engage. And if you take, for example, the issue of roads, there's a lot of emphasis correctly on the roads. Okay, you can say, are we planning for Nairobi that is full of vehicles, or are we planning for people?
In the previous times, what we used to have happening in industry development or factory development was that one of the approval regimes for constructing a factory was that you must create quotas for all cadre of staff that you anticipate in that factory. But look at it now. The servant quarters are no longer there. If they're there, they're rented out to other middle-income people, starters, people who are starting in the job market. And you're relegating your servants, the people who give you a service in your household, you're relegating them to informalization. Because if I live in squalor, and every 8, 7 o'clock you expect me at your house, which is this nice posh place with everything else that one would desire to have, and then suddenly I spend my 8 to 9, 10 hours there, and in the evening I have to return back to squalor, that contrast in itself psychologically can affect someone. And with time, it starts to create attitude problems. It starts to create distance. You know, people look at the inequalities as much more pronounced.
The leadership must take this very seriously, because you cannot have a country that is so uneven and hope that you'll have peace. It is not possible.
In Kenya's governance transition, the civil society plays a critical role in supporting the enactment of various legislations, and CSUDP employs strategies to inspire civil society actors to exploit the opportunity and bridge the artificial divide between state and non-state actors through renewed trust and confidence-building approaches that yield better synergies and draw complement from each other's efforts in the urban development arena. CSUDP has successfully built a comprehensive civil society organizations database and has established local urban forums across Kenya's urban areas. These approaches have expanded social network for influencing the urban discourse towards a new urban culture and has been strongly anchored at the local level by the local urban forums and at the national level by the Civil Society Urban Forum.
My own experience is that unless you actively engage and involve the poor, you will never have a sustainable project or initiative with them.
The local urban forums for us in the 14 towns have been very useful platforms where different material in terms of knowledge material has been put onto the table of discussion and processed in a manner that either it's useful for local policy formulation, it's useful for certain budgetary considerations, it's useful for certain governance decisions and so on. So it's informed many facets of urban development. And hence the platform wasn't to isolate civil society from other forms of urban engagement, but it was to bring the private sector, bring the local authorities together onto the same platform so that people can start to make meaningful dialogue over these different knowledge oriented products.
Through civil society organizations-led processes, the urban residents have been guided through a participatory process to develop popular urban dialogue position papers that bring into context the main urban issues. 14 towns developed these position papers that also highlight key local urban policy principles that were instrumental in informing the creation of the National Urban Development Policy, NUDP. NUDP seeks to create a framework for sustainable urban development in the country by addressing the following thematic areas: urban economy, urban finance, urban governance and management, national and county urban planning, land, environment and climate change, social development including infrastructure and services, physical infrastructure and services, urban housing, safety and disaster risk management, as well as dealing with needs of vulnerable and marginalized groups.
So if you look at urban space as a breathing organism, then you're saying a policy such as the National Urban Development Policy helps you to envisage all this connected systems of an urban space.
NUDP's vision is to have secure, well-governed, competitive and sustainable urban areas and cities that contribute to the realization of the broader national development goals articulated in the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and Vision 2030. The National Urban Development Policy was formulated with support from Embassy of Sweden in Nairobi.
And that's actually how you grow your town, empowering people, bringing them on to the mainstream of the city economy. You know, then it grows. But if you leave them out, what do you create?
So we are very happy that now we have a national urban development policy that speaks to the heart of the poor. So when we come to implement the policy, we are very clear that this policy will be responding very clearly to certain very major attributes that we see amongst the poor.
Both the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011 and the National Urban Development Policy establish a suitable legal environment against which to launch a popular drive for a new urban dispensation.
The challenges that we have in any of these sectors are beyond all the groups. So there's enough for everybody. I think we just need to start saying, what is it that I'm good at, you know? Let me specialize on that, you know, and that we shall be efficient and effective because resources are limited.
The Civil Society Urban Development Program has also adopted a three-pronged approach to creating a sustained urban change momentum based on the concepts of working together, moving together, and changing together. CSUDP, through the local urban campaign, which mobilized 14 major towns, pushed the agenda under the slogan of "Whose town is it anyway?" in a bid to cultivate a sense of urban ownership where principles of inclusiveness and equity are embraced in the quest for dignity for all.
The campaign, "Whose city is it anyway?" you know, was a great one, where people are now beginning to say, okay, so what is it that means something to me in Kakamega? What are my issues? And I think that is very important. The moment we localize the things, the moment this becomes my thing, it will be done.
The overarching goal of CSUDP is to have a city for all with an effective access to basic services and a constant constructive dialogue between the public and the duty bearers.
In my view, what really will work, and this is what the CSUDP partners have been experimenting on, what works are those interventions that are created by the people themselves. They must be involved in deciding how they want to change their livelihoods. The program that was done by Pamoja Trust was very innovative in the sense that they asked you to save a shilling a day. And as that shilling was being collected, you reach a certain level, you are given a loan against that, matching grant against what you have saved. Then levels of ownership become much higher than when these things are created by the biggies out there.
CSUDP, in its drive for dignified living in urban areas, recognizes the needs and rights of access to clean and safe water, effective sanitation, and sound waste management systems.